They say cook what you know. If I don't know anything else, I know grits. And most people make them wrong. This was the recipe my grandmama showed me. She probably got it from her grandmama. Here's the recipe if you want to print screen and have it. Let's get into this Southern classic. Before I forget, like, subscribe, and ring that bell. That way you can see all the videos in the series. And thank you. Making grits is just as easy as pie when you have good tools. So we're going to start with a large saucepan here and some filtered water that we've already measured out and high heat. All we're doing is bringing this water to a boil. Once we have a good rolling boil, we're going to add salt to this water. It not only flavors your grits, but it keeps them from clumping, which is the nature of starchy foods. Now with whisk in hand, before I start adding this, I'm stirring first because I really want all of these kernels to be in this unclumped. If you start wrong and skip this step, your grits will not turn out right. You have to pour them in as you stir. And then lower your heat because you want them to absorb all of that moisture without being broken down. So if you continue to beat it, you'll break them down. There we go. We're on low. The next thing is to add your top and leave them alone for 3 minutes to simmer. Okay, we've let it sit and now it's absorbed enough of that moisture where we can whip it. We don't want to turn these into mush. We want to be able to feel that texture as we eat them and it feel like grain. Even though we took our time, these are still going to be a little lumpy. And that's okay. Don't make grits unless you have time to whip it. And you're going to have to whip it real good. These lumps are superficial. There's no spots that have not touched the moisture because of the way we stirred them in slowly. So this is because they had a chance to sit. And as I whip it, you can see all of that water that was sitting on the surface is incorporated now. And the texture is starting to get to exactly where we need it to be. There we go, a few more turns. These have soaked up most of the water and they're pretty creamy, so I can add the next 2 ingredients. I like to use a combination of whole milk and heavy whipping cream. Now look, grits are not diet food, so don't skimp on the milk and the cream. If you only use milk, it's going to evaporate and it's not going to give your grits the texture you want. If you only use cream, your grits are going to be delicious, but way too heavy. The combination will give you the creaminess and texture you want your grits to have. The rest is just stirring these grits until they soaked up all of that liquid. And as I do that, I want to explain what grits are. This simple food was the staple of slaves. It's probably taken from a recipe that is still used in Africa today. Now, when you hear about grits, they say they're Southern food, but they are African American Southern food. And if you grew up in the South or even visited down here, you know that it's on most breakfast menus. I have to admit, I do not like everybody's grits. And this recipe is something that always works for me. I like to make big pots of grits and then I freeze it. It freezes beautifully and we can have grits every day. Today we're going to have grits and fried green tomatoes because we are Southern all the way down to the roots. And this is starting to have the texture that we really want to see. It's running very smoothly through my whisk. And as it continues to cook, those lumps will be working themselves out. This is good. So now I'm going to add my next ingredient. Really, it's my last ingredient, and that is butter. You cannot have grits without butter. Today I'm going to use unsalted butter and adjust the salt at the end, but salted butter works fine as well. And then I just put my top back on because I want the butter to melt into the grits. This is what it looks like when it is done in the pot. And as I spoon these grits up, I want you to notice they still have the texture of a grain, but they're creamy and silky. They're not too wet or dry. They're not too grainy or mushy. Just perfect the way grits should be. I hope you try them.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this one. Tell me how it turned out for you in the comments. Click like, subscribe and ring that bell for all the videos in this playlist, or just view these next two. And thank you again for watching. Alright, that's it.